And I walked in with my boys, my three boys and a friend of mine, Donnie. And I went, God's not here, boys. God is not here. And we sat down, and then the guy went through his deal, and then I realized what was going on, and we got out of there. So that place had that feeling. God was not there. Not there.
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours.
So, Jack, we've been trying to make this work. We've been trying to have you come on here for a little bit. We've had to kind of postpone the date a couple of times, but here we are. You reached out to me. You are a listener, a subscriber to the show already, which, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And you have sent me some extremely long emails with I don't even know where to start. I was riding on a train, the train Maya here in Mexico, and I had a lot of time to read them. Very, very interesting, very intriguing experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
Where do we start? Where do we start with this?
Well, see, I'm really a detail fanatic, and sometimes it's overwhelming. I get that, and believe it or not, I was trying to keep that compressed. So
I actually enjoy that. I enjoy that you're so detail orientated because it gives me a much better picture. So don't ever apologize for that. I think it's actually a good trait to have.
Okay, I also find that adding as much detail as you can helps with skeptical people, because nobody that's like making stuff up is going to give you that detail, because then you have to tell the story again later, and how are you going to keep up with all that, right?
So true, so true. And before we actually dive right into the stories, Jack, why don't you give a little bit of a history background to you, and if there's anything that you want to shout out or plug, please do that now.
Yeah, I got nothing to plug right now, buddy. Maybe when some music comes out,
which you're working on. So, when that does come out, we'll definitely be, showcasing that.
Okay. So, I was born in 1962, so I'm 25. My parents are, my dad was a World War II veteran. He was an officer on an aircraft carrier, HMS Illustrious, British. And my mom, just your prototypical little English little old lady that you just don't mess with, She never told a lie. She never even exaggerated. That's the kind of people my parents were, just rock solid people that would do anything for you, really. And she actually wanted to do something. So, there was back then, of course, there was no real military positions for women. There were a few. It was pretty rare in the Air Force mainly. So she got in with assembling bomb components for what we were going to be using bombers and bomber command, things like that. Top secret position, really, in the sense that you were never allowed to say where you were, what you were doing, anything like that, because German spies were everywhere, as our spies were over there. And they would love to get those locations. They would have been bombed immediately. And it was dangerous work, too, because my mother stayed with a friend nearby, and there was a bombing one night, and part of the building collapsed that they were in. And this young woman, my mom's friend, her father was in the bathroom shaving, and they used the straight edges. And I won't get too graphic, the collapse caused a catastrophic cut. And so when they dug them out, they were pretty badly hurt, but they healed up. But the father bled out real quick. He passed away real quick. So there was dangerous things going on, not just on the front lines. There were dangerous things going on all through the war, and that really makes an imprint on somebody's life. So my parents really valued the life. We don't have that anymore. They valued honesty. They valued life. They had no grudges against any German military people. They were doing what they were told to do also, as our people were. And if had they have won, they would have been making the history instead of the Allies, right? But I was born in 1962, a very stable family. My dad was hardworking. I grew up in Toronto. If anyone's familiar with, it was around the Eglinton and Dundas area. Went to school there for part of kindergarten, then we moved. And I grew up in a house that stuff started happening in. And so I'll skip forward because it'll get ridiculous. But the very first sort of paranormal, the very first my purse was loose. Paranormal experience I had was and it was weird. My dad had brought me to a Christmas party for kids, for his work, and I've been bugging him for a tow truck, bugging him, because I think I was about 4, and I'm realizing how this thing works, right? You bug your parents and they finally, all right, shut up. Just wait till you see what comes out of the tree.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're at this thing, and all the kids are racing around, just out of our minds on candy and sugar and everything. Like, there was no limits back then. Everybody was just, here, eat this candy, eat this, and we were just running around like lunatics. And I quickly wore out, as all the other kids did. I was looking around and see a lot of kids with their heads in their parents' laps. Well, let's go. So Santa came, and it was time to give out the presents, and they just grabbed from a stack boys or a stack girls. So there was no names or anything like that. Gave me the box and cut to the chase. We got home. I opened it up, and it was a tow truck. I could not believe it. So now I'm buying into the Santa Claus thing 100%, right? This is legitimate. And so I ran upstairs. Even as tired as I was, I just wanted to play with it. So I went. It was an old house. It was old, like really beautiful walnut wood all throughout the house, crown molded. It was beautiful. And I went upstairs, and I was fooling around with it, and I was getting really tired. And so I went into my parents' room because it was right there instead of, 10 feet away in my room. It was too far to walk. And so I went in there, I got up on the bed, and I laid on my back, and I looked at my dad's dresser, which was really tall, and I always wanted to know what was up there. And he would never give it up, right? I mean, he just loved playing that with me. So I fell asleep, and it seemed like a second later, I opened my eyes, and I'm looking at myself laying down on the bed from the perspective of the ceiling. At 4 years old, that did not freak me out. I mean, everything back at that age is a new experience, so I didn't know it was out of the ordinary. It didn't faze me at all. I just saw myself there. It was so comfortable. I remember that was a very comfortable feeling. And I looked really peaceful. I was stretched out across the width of the bed, and I looked over and I saw the top of my dad's dresser finally, and I saw the stuff that was up there. And I was overjoyed. And I actually felt the light on my back, which is weird because I'm out of my body, and I'm still feeling myself. I still feel like I have a physical body, and I'm feeling this thing on my back, which didn't faze me. But years later, I thought about it a lot. And as I got older, I thought, that's a weird detail.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Yeah. And so I saw this stuff up there, and I don't know, you're not as old as I am, but we used to have this stuff called greasy kid stuff. And it was a tube of hair gel, right? Hang on a second. Sorry to take that parcel out. It's just loose. So I'm going to feel like Sylvester the cat for a bit. And so that situation passed. I didn't even bring it up to my parents because like I said, I had no worldview. It just happened, right? The very next thing that happened was probably a few months later anyway. I don't think I was 5 yet. And so in Christmas, my birthday's in August, so I was just, a few months, 4 years old when that happened. So I was still 4, and our bedroom was right beside our parents. My brother and I had single beds. He was close to the window. I was right on the wall with my parents. I heard my mom scream, like really scream loud. It just snapped me right out, and it terrified me. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm listening. My heart's pounding. I had never heard my mom scream or anything like that. Never even seen her cry at that point. Strong woman. And then I heard my dad calming her down, and then things calmed down. And then I heard her sobbing for a bit. And then not too long after that, the phone rang, and and this was like early in the morning, so this was weird. And we had those huge black hard, I think they're Bakelite phones maybe. They were really heavy, right? And they rang loud, right? So he ran downstairs, and I heard him talking. Yeah. And I heard him talking, like I could hear him. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but then he came back upstairs slower than he went down, and he went in the room, shut the door, and I heard him talking, and then I heard my mom like crying again, like losing it. I didn't know what happened until years later, but I knew my grandmother died because the funeral was shortly thereafter, and I didn't go. But there was an incident a couple of weeks before that where the whole family, my aunt and uncle just lived down the street, my mom's sister, They moved over from England in 45. My grandparents came over in 50, maybe 1950. Maybe a little later, but anyway, so my grandmother was in there, my grandfather, my cousins. One cousin was my age, a couple of my brother's age. He's 5 years older. And then my sister, who's 17 years older, asked if she could shake my grandmother's medication. So yeah, here. And she started shaking it. My grandmother suddenly sat forward. If people are squeamish, plug your ears right now. So she sat forward and a huge stream of solid blood like that thick came out. Projectile came out. Like it was massive. It looked like she lost all her blood. And it was chaos. All of a sudden, like we were getting grabbed by our shirts and out the door, go play outside. And it was chaos. And then shortly thereafter, one of those old Cadillac ambulances came, station wagons. Remember those big Cadillacs, and took her away. And so I found out years later what that phone call was, and I found out why my mom screamed. She told, like, I kept asking her about it as I was growing older. What happened? And she would, no, don't worry about it. And so when I was old enough, she told me, and I can't remember how old I was, maybe 13 or something. And so what happened was she was sleeping and felt her foot being pulled, right? And she thought my dad was trying to get her attention for some reason. And so she opened her eyes, and it was her mom, who was living with us up until she went to the hospital. And so waking up, my mother said, I just thought, I couldn't even remember she was in the hospital at that second, and thought her mom had come in her room and needed something. So she just asked her, what do you want? What do you want, Mom? And her mom said, goodbye, Jean, and then disappeared. And then she screamed, right? And then, yeah, that's what I heard. I heard her scream, because then it all came, oh my God, she's in the hospital. And the phone call 5 minutes later was the hospital calling to say she'd passed.
So it was 5 minutes later, you said, the phone call?
About 5 minutes later. It was not long later. I can't be exact. I mean, I was 4, but very quickly after I heard her calming down a bit, I could hear them talking, couldn't hear what they were saying. But very shortly thereafter, the phone rang, and it was the hospital calling to tell them. So that was, when my mom told me that really made a deep impression on me, because I knew she wasn't lying. My mom didn't lie anyways, but I mean, for people listening, you know who my mom was. She could be a horrible liar, but she wasn't. But I heard all this thing play out, and everything made perfect sense, right? And so I always had that on my mind. And then we moved out of that house to another house a little further west, around Kiel and Eglinton area. And it was those homes were built for World War II veterans. So that's what my dad was told. No one really knew. But so we moved into this sort of middle class area. Like, we weren't lower middle class. We were sort of middle class. We did good. We didn't want for anything. Of course, my parents had that World War II mindset. And so nothing, like, we got powdered milk. My mom wasn't paying the extra 10 cents or whatever it was. Not all the time, but, and so we were living there. My grandfather and I ended up on the top floor. Like, my brother and I had the big bedroom at the front of the house, which was really big. And my grandfather was just across the hall, right at the top of the stairs. And the hall was maybe, 10 feet long. Wasn't very far. And so we became very close anyways at the other house. He introduced me to, like, I don't know if you can see them, but I have die cast everywhere. Like, my collection got up to about 5,000 at one point, 5,000 die cast. My grandfather got me started on that. Yeah, I went nuts. But so, I mean, I was buying junk ones too and restoring them to brand new condition. And then I started doing custom jobs for people that wanted, like, a wife wanted something that looked like her husband's car when he was a teenager. So I do custom jobs. I got right into it. But he introduced me to that because he loved all these Corgis and Matchbox, all the British stuff, or even some French stuff like La France and things like that. He loved it. And he had a bunch of them, gave them all to me. And then any excuse he could have, birthday, Christmas, so it's a nice day, he'd buy me a die cast, right? Like, I still have my original one here. I don't know if you can see that or not, Ryan. Do you see this? That big Batmobile?
Yeah. Wow.
You see that? That's my grandfather bought me that.
That is amazing.
And it's a Corgi. And I mean, I just love that stuff. And then all the James Bond and the TV stuff, like the Saint, Man from U.N.C.L.E. I mean, I've got all that stuff. I don't know if do you remember that stuff, Ryan? Like, just Man from U.N.C.L.E. Remember this stuff?
I never watched Man from U.N.C.L.E. I never watched that.
Yeah.
I'm old, but not that old. I was more like
Yeah,
Fall
no,
Guy,
I could
and
see
things
you're
like
about
that.
19 or 20. You're about 19, 20 by the looks of you, right? Intellectually, you're about 105, wisdom-wise. But anyways,
Yeah,
he got me into that. And he also had two complete sets of hundreds and hundreds of lead soldiers each set. One was like Wellington, Napoleon, that whole battle. And these were really pristine. And the other was like a Cowboys and Indians. And it was just like, it was mind blowing. These things, today, they probably be worth like 10,000 and up each set. Like they were,
jeez.
yeah, yeah. He gave them to me. Of course, he kept them. And he said, when you're old enough and you can take care of them on your own, you'll get them. But I'm going to hold on to them. And he let me set them out and we'd look at them and he'd explain the war and tell me the battle tactics and everything else. He was really smart, my grandfather. Loved history. My dad too. But so we had a fire at the house one year. It was a few days before Christmas. And by the time we were able, we almost got killed too, man. My dad got everybody out because my sisters were in the basement, so he got them out first, and of course my mom first, and then he got my grandparents, and then my sisters, and he was trying to get in to get my brother and I, and the firemen were trying to block him. You can't go in there. The house is on fire. You cannot go in there. My kids are in there. I'm going in. We'll get them, sir. We'll get them. Like, F you will. And my dad was a champion boxer in the Royal Navy. He was cut way before bodybuilding. He was a massive, powerful man. He always beat me in a race, which really sucked when he was after me, right? But I had some neighborhood chases that the neighborhood father said, "Get him, Mike, get him!" And it was just he always caught me. But he, from what my uncles told me, he knocked a couple of them down pretty quickly and ran into a burning house. And all my brother and I don't know if the smoke had got to us, but we were out. What woke us up was he booted that door right off the hinges. And these weren't paper doors like we have today. They're solid door. He booted that right off. He already had a blanket and it was wet. So I don't know where he got that from. And he just threw the blanket over us. He tucked us both under one arm. He threw my little rocking chair through the window, and out the window we went, all three of us. And we landed on, there was a little porch roof there. It was about 5 feet, so it wasn't really high. We landed on that, and he took the brunt. He was cut up, and he unwrapped us. The firemen came with the ladders and grabbed us, and he got down. They passed us over the back fence to our neighbors, and we went to their house.
Wow.
My dad was like that, right? I mean, what dad wouldn't do that, really? Like I did the same thing with my kids. I got third-degree burns on my hands and feet. I got burned real bad saving my wife and my kids from a fire we had here. And I was on fire. My arms were on fire. My feet were on fire. I fell. I was engulfed in fire. It was bad. But and so a few days, I don't know how long it was, maybe a week later, we were allowed in the house. And of course, it was soaked because the firemen were in there with the hoses, and it was a mess. It was burned. It was a mess. We went into the room where we kept all the stuff, and it was just a melted pile of goo. Everything had melted. It was heartbreaking.
That's too bad. Yeah, that is heartbreaking.
It really was. Like my grandfather was a tough dude, I seen him welling up just for me because I don't think he would have cared too much. He would have, but it made it worse because he wanted me to have that. And a couple of things were okay, but most of them were like all those lead soldiers were gone. So we moved into this other house. Now I'll fast forward, otherwise this will get crazy. Okay, so we were very, very close. My grandfather loved the Maple Leafs. He just loved them. And being from England and soccer and all that, and they call it football. They're a little crazy over there. But and he loved it, and we watched all the games. And I was really sick when I was a kid. I almost died a few times. And he would sit up with me. Like, it seemed to me he never slept. Because every time I wake up and I'd look, and he'd be right there. And he'd be talking, telling me about the game. Or he even commentated some games for me. He was listening on the radio, but he was commentating. So we were very, very close, right? But he was like an ace mechanic. He had two mini Austins. He said, one's yours, one's mine. He could tear one of those down, all the body apart, like doors off, hood, bonnet, they call it off, engine out, seats out, everything out, and back together in a weekend, no problem. No problem. He was really, really, he was really good. I have a bunch of his certificates because they would have to get them yearly in England.
Okay,
so
mechanic certificates.
Yeah,
okay.
So I got a bunch of those. I got tickets when he came over on. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm having a brain fart. It's a really famous ship. It obviously
Queen
wasn't.
Mary.
Was
No.
that? No, it wasn't the Queen Mary. I'll think of it later, but I have all this stuff.
Okay.
It is a famous ship. It was. I think it was like it was in the era of Titanic, one of those kind of things. But anyways, so he used to smoke one cigarette off another. Literally, he'd be banging, lighting one off another. Mark 10, right? And he would roll his own, and they were deadly, no filter. And I mean, he could get an ash the whole length of the cigarette. He was a pro. It was amazing that they would never knock the damn ash off till he needed a lucky, right? So he got cancer. I mean, and he was a champion walker. He had all these trophies and medallions and stuff. He was champion, like speed walker in England. And then when he came over, went down to the States and won a bunch of competitions down there. He was healthy, except for he killed himself. And so he withered away. It was horrible. And right near the end, they wouldn't let me see him anymore because he was just like, I watched my brother go through that, so I understand now. But at the time, I was pissed. I wanted to see him. I didn't care what he looked like, right? He was in the hospital dying, and so I never got to see him. So the night of his wake, all my relatives, they obviously knew how close we were. I was his favorite. And everybody would come to my dad and my grandfather and the family for problems. They were like Sopranos kind of, right? Only not evil. And everybody came to them for money advice, financial advice, and just advice with family issues. My grandfather and my dad were just like that. You don't really have that in families anymore too much. Some European families still do. But so they knew how close we were. They just knew. And so everybody was fussing over me, and I freaking hated it. And I didn't want it to be about for me. It was my grandfather. We all missed him. It was about that. It wasn't about me. I was mad. I was 10 years old. 10 years old. And so I was mad about that, but I'm not going to start a scene. I just tried to stay away. When I saw someone coming over and their arms open, I'd zip and I'd be out of there. And so my mother comes up to me, my mother, who I trusted would, nothing she would ever do to me would ever harm me in the slightest way ever. She was just awesome. And she said, come on, son, let's go say goodbye to your grandfather alone. I could see what's going on. Okay, Mom. We walked over to the casket, and she said, you really have to kiss your grandfather goodbye. And I'm like, what? And I'm looking at this thing, and I go, Mom, he's not there. He's not there. Look at him, Mom. He's in heaven. I was starting to panic because I wanted to do what my mom told me to do. But this was a line I just couldn't cross, so I was starting to panic a bit. It was a real problem. And I said, no, Mom, I can't do it. I just cannot do it. She goes, well, you have to say goodbye. And she started to say or else and then stopped herself. And so she had some kind of an important reason, I realized, but she saw that I'm not doing it. And suddenly she did something so out of character that I was not prepared, not ready, grabbed my hand and put it on top of his hand. And I just, I freaked. Yeah, there was two things. One, it was gross. I know that has come a long way now, right? But back then, he was gray and clammy. It was horrible. It was horrible. And that was the yuck factor. But I couldn't handle that. It was the fact that my mom betrayed me like that I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And then I started losing it. And of course, what does everybody think? Oh, he's finally snapped. It's finally gotten to him. That made me even more mad. And I was just crying and I couldn't stop. I couldn't breathe even. I was like, one of those deals. And it was humiliating because I never wanted to cry in front. My dad was a World War II veteran. When the war was over, he transferred to the British Army and became SAS, which we didn't find out about. I only found out about that about 4 years ago, well after he died. He never told anybody. A cousin from England told me. My uncle, he never told anybody. And so he raised us to be honest, tough, hardworking, always earn your living, to go a mile ahead, never put up with bullies, never fear bullies, never that kind of thing, never cry. I never even saw my dad's chin move, emotional. He was rock solid. I wanted to be that, right? And so that made me so mad because I was losing in front of everybody. And my brother-in-law, like I said, my sisters are 17 and 19 years older. He's about 20 years older, and he was so good to me my whole life. Like, he taught me how to play guitar. He taught me how to fish. He took me fishing all the time, taught me how to hunt. Although I don't like hunting, I stopped. I didn't really like it. And so I was really, really close. And he says, come on, I'm taking you home. I'm going to take you fishing tomorrow. So he got me out of there. And that night is when the entire rest of my life, I started having incredibly nightmarish experiences and a couple of exhilarating ones. And I'm going to just preface this right now by saying if I'm listening to this and I'm watching somebody about to tell the things I'm about to tell, I don't think I'd be able to believe it. And I don't know how much this is worth, because there's a lot of people that say a lot of things. But as a Christian man, and I've had experiences with Jesus too, I would put my hand on a Bible, which mine's way over there, right now, and swear everything I'm about to tell you is absolutely 100% true. It happened. And I don't blame anybody if you're rolling your eyes when you hear some of these things. I don't blame you, because I'd probably be doing the same thing. So having said that, here's what happened. So that night, we went back to my sister's and my brother-in-law's house, and it was a semi-detached, and it was in a really old neighborhood, and it was wealthy home. He had a really good job, and there was wealthy people there, and it was oh my God, it was a beautiful home, beautiful area, neighborhood. Every house had a gigantic oak tree in front at the street. So the whole street was aligned with oak trees that came together at the top, in the summer and then part of the fall to form a tunnel. It was fantasy land stuff. I love going there. And in the house was so atmospheric, and the atmosphere changed after this day. Before this day, it was like magical to me. This house was beautiful crown molding. The baseboards were, I don't know, maybe 7-8 inches high. It was just French doors. It was just awesome, beautiful hardwood floor. So we talked for a bit about my grandfather. We played a little bit of guitar, and he calmed me right down. And so we went to bed. So right at the very top of the stairs is the door to the spare bedroom at the back of the house. And then in between the front of the house where my sister's room was, there was a large bathroom. And another room beside the guest room, another room he used for an office, which was a pretty big room right at the back. So those two rooms at the back. I got in there, shut the door, laid down in the bed, and there was a window in the room. But the back of those properties, there was laneways through each neighborhood between this street and that street. The backs of the houses all had laneways, and you had a little driveway, and most of them had old barn garage type things that you could pull your park in the back, because there's no parking on the street. So it was always in the back. So there was laneways through. And then in the laneways, just like at the front, but they weren't oak trees, there were maples and pine. Like there's some European pine trees. They were absolutely massive. So very, very little light got into that room. And when I first turned the light off, it was like pitch black. You could see nothing. And then, a few minutes later, you could barely make some detail out, but barely. And so I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden, I start feeling an irrational fear. And it took me by surprise, because I was like, what's going on here? And at the time, I wasn't old enough to comprehend spiritual matters. I mean, kids scare each other with ghost stories, and you hear about things, but you don't know. We haven't got anything worked out. Not to say I do now, but I couldn't work it out. I could not work it out. I thought, is my grandfather coming to say something to me? Right? And I thought it was the first thing that popped into my mind, but then I instantly thought, this is not my grandfather. This feels bad. This is bad news. And then suddenly the room got darker than it was when I very first shut the light off. I don't know how that made sense, but it was darker than it was dark before that. It was like something enveloped that room. And that was the first time I experienced what I now know is evil. You can't describe it. You just can't. It's if you've experienced it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's an atmospheric thing even. The room changed. There was pure evil in that room. Hell was in that room. Demonic forces, I'm not saying literally, but the evil spirit was in that room. And I had no idea what it was at the time, but it petrified me. And again, coming from a kid that was ashamed of even showing the slightest bit of fear, it petrified me. I was petrified. That kind of fear I never even imagined was possible. Never imagined. And I suddenly started concentrating on the door. And This has happened to me a couple of times over my life, and you'll hear another one later. But I somehow I knew that there was a dark spirit or entity, whatever you want to call it, demon, whatever, that was it was a real battle, but this thing was fighting to get to me. It was a battle. I don't know if it was fighting angelic forces, like you can read about in Daniel, where an angel said, "I'm sorry," and 3 weeks later, I think it was 3 weeks later, something, he was fighting demonic forces in the air, and he had to call Michael for help to get through, so he could come talk to Daniel. So at the time, I didn't know that, but I have a feeling it was something like that. This thing was battling to get to me, right? And I'm looking at the door, and I'm 100% convinced something's coming through that door, and I did not know what to say or do. I couldn't even yell. And during this whole time, this is ridiculous. Okay, this is ridiculous. And I can laugh about it now, and I have laughed about it. But at the time, it was not funny. My brother-in-law, if there was Olympics for snoring, he would be a champion every year. Like, this guy was ridiculously loud. Yeah, I don't know how my sister, let alone got any sleep, but kept saying it was that stupid. Like, I don't know how anybody could snore that loud, even on purpose. It was retarded. And he slept through the entire encounter, the entire thing. So I know he didn't experience any of what was about to happen. I know that for a fact. I wasn't sure about my sister, though. But I know now. I'm just about to say I couldn't call out, but it wasn't that. It was I didn't dare call out. I didn't want to bring attention to myself, calling my sister or my brother help, I did not want to bring any attention to myself. And then suddenly, as I'm panicking and trying to figure out what to do, there was a tremendous boom. It rattled the entire house. And those houses are solid. They are solid wood and solid foundation. It rattled the whole house. I was amazed the windows didn't break. And that was like almost like a sound wave going through me that amplified my fear even more. Even more. I thought I was going to have a heart attack and die because my heart was going so fast. I could feel it everywhere in my body. My neck was pumping. My temples were pumping. My eyes were hurting. I could feel it in my friggin' mouth and my lips. It was just boom, 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 boom. My heart was going crazy. It was so loud. And within 10, 15 seconds, as I'm trying to comprehend this, boom, again. And it was ridiculously loud. I was convinced somebody in the neighborhood is going to call the cops because you could hear that all the way down the block. I knew it. It was that ridiculous. And I couldn't figure out what it was. It wasn't banging on
Sorry,
yeah.
Jack. Where was it coming from? Like where was the banging coming from specifically? Can you locate that?
That's what I was just gonna get into. It wasn't my bedroom door, right? It would have come off the hinges and went right through the wall. I couldn't figure it out at first. But eventually I realized it was the front door. It was the front door. And it had to be supernatural because the power that thing would have needed to, the force of that slamming, it would have needed to cause the vibration of that home and the noise. It was like a cannon going off. It would have busted the door frame. The door would have, even though the door was solid, I think it was a maple door. It might have been oak. It was a solid wooden door. It was a heavy door. It would have smashed it. It would have absolutely smashed it. So that was a supernatural thing. But I figured it was the front door being open. And if you could imagine the Hulk, just both hands as hard as you can, like, I know that's a ridiculous analogy, but
No, it's not at all, and it's strange, not strange, but it's always a coincidence, always synchronicity that you're talking about this. And I was just listening to an episode on the show Almost False, where there was an ex-satanic individual who had switched to Christianity, and it was like within that week there was something at his door, and he said it was like it felt like it was kicking in the door with so much force. He surprised the door like withstood it, and he said it was very, very bizarre. So very interesting.
Wow, yeah, it's absolutely like a supernatural thing. It's supernatural,
Yeah,
because
yeah, 100%.
because it caused the kind of chaos that slam and that boom did, and the noise. It would have smashed things to pieces, and it didn't. And so here's one of the hardest parts to believe too. That went on all night long, and it would happen every 10 seconds to maybe the most, maybe a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, but it was usually even quicker. It was just go boom. I mean, have you ever been at reenactments of the Civil War and you hear the muskets going off and the cannons going off?
I have not. I have not.
If anybody has, you know how loud that is. That's how loud this stuff was. It was ridiculous. And I am amazed to this day that I didn't faint, because I just kept feeling waves of heat and how would you explain it? Like almost nausea, where you're just gonna black out all night long. That kept going all night long, and I'm amazed to this day I didn't at least faint, or I'm amazed it didn't stop my heart.
Yeah,
it was that ridiculous. Yeah. So it's not just the sound and the vibrations. It's the evil element to it that amplifies it even more. And if you haven't experienced, you won't know what I'm talking about. You just won't. And that went on all night long, and it was just, oh my God, I was drenched in sweat. I was shaking so bad. I mean, my legs were actually knocking. And finally, just at the point where I knew the sun. This went on for hours and hours, where the sun must just be coming up. I couldn't see it, but then you could start making out gray detail in the room, and that dark shroud. It just was gone, and I knew it was over. And man, that is so. Not only are you petrified beyond imagination, literally, you can't imagine being that afraid. You could never imagine it. But it's so exhausting. It exhausted me. I could barely, like when I finally was able to gather myself, because now the room's lit up. I could barely lift up my arms. It felt like I was pumping iron for hours. I could barely lift my arms up. I could barely sit up. I was wore out, but I wanted to get out of that damn room. So I finally, my brother-in-law was still snoring. I finally got up. You okay? Oh, your screen froze for a sec, but you're back. So I got up. Yeah. My sister was, I didn't know if she was awake or not, but finally my brother-in-law got up, and I didn't even ask him about it, because I knew he didn't hear a damn thing. And I knew at my age, he was going to go, you had a nightmare. I knew that. Who wouldn't say that, right? Like, how could he would think to himself, how did I not hear that? Come on, kid, you had a nightmare. And so I didn't mention to him. So we went fishing, had a great day. Like all that crap, that fear, that terror, everything washed away. I felt great. Caught a lot of fish, and as usual, I fell in the stream a few times. I always managed to do that, because I was always trying to get into spots he couldn't fit to try to catch one bigger than him. Because he's an awesome fisherman. He always destroyed me. But he taught me good, so I caught plenty. So I'd end up standing on a piece of wood I knew I shouldn't, and it'd be in the water, right? And he'd be laughing. Even though he couldn't see me, he'd hear the splash and he'd laugh, right? So we had a great day. We caught a bunch of trout, and we went home. And I could not wait to get there and talk to my sister. And when we pulled up, she was waiting at the front door. She was waiting, and she did not look. She looked, I don't know if you'd say afraid, but very concerned. And she goes, I need to talk to you now. To Joe was his name. And he goes, hang on a second, I get some stuff. And she's like, I need to talk to you now. And he's like, hang on, and get some stuff. So I ran up there and I said, did you hear anything last night? She said, yes. I said, why didn't you come get me? She goes, why didn't you come get me? Because she was just as terrified as I was, and she couldn't move and didn't want to speak out either. She went through the whole thing, right? Yeah. She went through the whole thing too and was petrified, and she could not wake him up. She said she tried. She didn't want to do this because then it would be drawing attention, but she was like doing her best to try to get him up, and he would not get up. And the same thing happened to me here in this room with my wife. My room's right there. She wouldn't wake up one night when something horrifying was happening here. But so her neighbor came over.
I wonder. I wonder if they're. Sorry, Jack. I wonder if people are not necessarily under a spell, but like they're not meant to wake up. They're not meant to experience that. It's supposed to be for someone else. And like your wife and your uncle there were not not meant
He's
to.
my brother-in-law. He was my brother-in-law. But
brother-in-law.
100%,
Sorry.
I believe. No, that's 100%, because my wife, I could wake her up anytime. I'm a really light sleeper myself. She's got really bad health problems right now. She's having surgery soon. And so the second I hear anything, I'm up. But my wife isn't quite that light, but I can get her up, and I could not get her up. She would not wake up. So that's 100%. There's something going on there where these spirits are able to cause you. Either they can paralyze you also, and you're wide awake, but you can't move, or you're just sleeping and you can't wake somebody up. So the neighbor came over. She was finally when Joe got in the house. They wanted to go talk in another room. They were yelling, so I heard everything. She was yelling because she was so excited and freaked out. And the reason they got that house is because the people that lived next door told them it was for sale. They grew up with these two people. Like my sister and my brother-in-law, they were kids. They knew each other since they were in grade 2. They grew up together. And they grew up with their neighbors. They grew up with them. They're best of friends. I won't say their names because I think they're still alive, but they were pissed. They came over and they were screaming at her. Like, what the hell were you doing all night? They thought they were having some kind of massive fight. And my sister said, are you insane? Like, I don't know word for word, but basically the gist of it was she was telling these people, you think anybody could cause that kind of racket? And the cops didn't come? Why didn't you call the cop? Well, because you're our friends. And then they actually, when it came out later, like years later, not years, but yeah, years, I guess, a couple of years later, my sister, we always talked about it, but never talked about the neighbors until, a couple of times, little details. But then she told me that they didn't even believe it was a fight. They wanted to believe it was a fight. They believed it was some ghostly thing, right? But they wanted to believe it was a fight. And they were hoping that when they went down and started yelling at her, that she'd say, oh, I'm really sorry. This is what happened. And then when my sister told them what happened, they were terrified. And they both ended up selling their houses, both of them. So I don't know if these neighbors experienced things in their own home. I have no clue. But they sold their house too, and they loved that house. And they were there for years before my brother-in-law and my sister were there. And they both got out. So I was never so happy to be going home. That night, I'm like, all right, you guys, sorry about your luck, but I'm out of here. So he drove me home, and I didn't say that, but I was thinking it, right? I'm so glad to be out of there, and I was worried about them, but I was glad to be out of there. And so that night, I came home, and it was such a relief. I played my guitar all day, and I did some I did a lot of drawing, so I did some art, and I just wanted to get my mind away from that and forget about it. I knew it wasn't my grandfather. There was no way he would ever do anything like that. It was not him. I wondered later if there was some kind of spirit attached that got really pissed off because he was gone and wanted to take out its... I don't know. But my grandfather was such an awesome, kind man. I never even seen him yell. Never seen him get mad, ever. And my mom told me he was an awesome dad, and they never got smacked or yelled at or anything like that. He was just a really, really nice man. And so I can't see him having a demonic oppression, right? Weirder things have happened, but I don't know. And it may be because we moved out of that original house, because stuff was going on there. And there were things going on before that my aunt and uncle would sort of allude to, but would not elaborate on. So maybe, I'm just guessing. So I get home, and I had a captain's bed. You know what this is, Ryan?
No, I don't.
Well, they're probably 4 feet high, and they got drawers under the mattress. And right, so they go up against the wall. It was a single bed, but I loved it. It was called the captain's bed, and I'm captain, right? Obviously. And so it was high. And usually I had it against my wall because the end without the drawers is not closed. There's no plywood or nothing. It's just open. So, but I wanted it under my window. So my dad built a plywood partition for the side and had some shelves for books. So I had it right up against my bedroom window, like right here would be the headboard. The window's right there. And that was at my grandfather's old bedroom. So it was at the opposite end of the house that I had my bedroom with my brother in. It was at the back of the house now. And my dad built a workshop addition onto the back of the house, which was about, maybe 15 feet wide in the length of the whole house. It was a big space. But if I opened up my window, there was maybe like a 2 foot drop to the roof of that extension. So I used to get out there all the time and sit on the roof and, with my buddies or, whatever. And at one end, the TV antennas we used to have, they were like aluminum, like towers. They would go up like 30 feet above the house. And they had rung time, right? So we would climb up there and get in trouble all the time. Get down, you're going to break your neck and, all that crap. And we get up there with our walkie-talkies and stuff, right? And we'd hear police bands, and so we were always up there. But when the addition went on, I was using it to get in and out of the house at night, right? But also on the other side, there was a tree there, just a small, I think it was probably a crabapple tree, I can't remember, but we used to get up and down there also. And so it was convenient. And so that very same night, the very next night after all that crap happened, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm going to go. And I went to sleep. And then at some time in the morning, I woke up because I heard some kind of noise. And I'm listening, and my bedroom door is always shut. I didn't sleep my door open. And I'm listening, and it sounds like somebody like had a green garbage bag and was messing around with it. Like a garbage bag, plastic. Just imagine you're just doing this with it. That's what it sounded like. And it was right at the foot of my bed, which I couldn't see because it was so high up, right? I couldn't see there. And so I'm listening, and all of a sudden that evil atmosphere comes into the room, and it gets dark. And I'm like, oh my God. And that terror came back. It was intense, though. It wasn't intense. It was intense because there's no banging. I didn't see anything, but it was just this noise. And I got the instinct impression that whatever that was absolutely loving the fact that I was in fear. It was loving it, like maniacally loving it. It got off on it, got power off of it. And I knew that instinctively. I couldn't, maybe I couldn't articulate it like I am now, but I understood it. And that room was not very big. It was maybe 12 by maybe like 12 by 10. It was a small room. And we didn't have an attic because the house came to a peak and we didn't have a ceiling. It just came right to the peak in the house. It was all drywalls, right? So the attics are at the side of the house. I don't know if you've ever seen houses that have side attics. So
no, I have not.
Yeah. So it's about 4.5 feet wide on either side of the house and maybe 3.5 feet high. And the length of the whole house on both sides, just open area for storage. And of course, it's drywalled in, but there's openings. So at the top of the stairs, we had a closet. And then inside the closet, you could pull a panel up and you could get in it there. And in my old bedroom, now my parents' bedroom, my dad made these rolling bookshelves you could roll on wheels. You could roll in to the wall and roll them out and get access. And I had one in my room also, right? So that morning, I was up all night terrified of that. And then when the sun came up, it stopped. And then I got up and I'm looking around. No bags in my room at all. Nothing that could make that kind of sound at all. I think we may have had a cat at the time. I can't remember, but I didn't sleep my animals in my room. There's no cats in my room. No dogs. We had dogs. And so it was confusing. And I didn't want to tell my parents again because you know what would happen. You had a dream. I don't blame them. What are you going to do, right? And so this went on every night over and over and over and over, and it was petrifying. I know it doesn't sound like much, but when you're a kid and you're hearing something that doesn't make sense and doesn't belong, and there's an evil atmosphere to it, and the room's darker than it should be, it was terrifying. And so I got so desperate to find an answer one time, I pulled out my bookshelf, and I went back in the attic area, which I did not like going in. And I was looking around in there for any plastic kind of thing, and I couldn't see anything. And there was a stack of books. I'm looking through them, and there's an old Bible. It was a huge, huge Bible, like really thick, huge Bible. An old one that my grandfather pulled out of a church had burned down in Toronto, like a big church. And he pulled these 2 Bibles out of the rubble, and they were perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. One of them had like a burnt cover, and the covers were like an inch thick. Just solid compressed cardboard, I guess, right? And they were embossed. The Holy Bible. Beautiful. I still have one. Yeah, I should have took a picture and sent it to you. Beautiful, beautiful books. And there's etchings in them with rice paper to protect them. Like if you touch them, you get that lead on your graphite in your fingers. Just a stunning, stunning book. Really, really beautiful. Gold. There was gold lettering. gold leafing in it, and just amazing, amazing. So I saw this Bible, right? And I'm like, oh, wow. And I'm going through it, and I'm thinking, God, I'm asked God to stop this crap.
There
And
we
that's what,
go.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. That's when I started really praying, right? And it didn't do a thing. Didn't do a thing. Not right away. What it did do was I was a little bit less afraid. It didn't stop it right away. Let me repeat that. It did do something, but it didn't do it in the way I was expecting. I was expecting God was going to go, what are you doing? Get out of here. And it would stop, right? Didn't stop. But what it did do immediately was I was not as afraid as I had been. I was a little bit less afraid, and then the next night a little bit less and a little bit less. And then when I start feeling like I can handle this, one night the noise didn't come, but instead there was a tapping on my window. Tap, tap, tap. I almost wasn't going to tell you this, and I didn't plan on telling you, and it's coming out of my mouth. So I'm screwed. I got to tell you now. But I can't believe I'm saying this. Look, this is going to sound so ridiculous that you're probably going to think later he's full of crap. If he's not full of crap on the other stuff, he's full of crap on this. But again, man, I wish I could grab my Bible, but my hand on the Bible, what did I do with it? My wife has it. This happened 100%. I promise it happened. My word, as a Christian man, this happened. I wasn't dreaming. I was wide awake. I heard this tapping. It's behind my head. I'm laying there and I'm like, I do not want to look at and see what this is. And as I thought that, it went tap, scratch, right? And I'm starting to try to convince myself, that's one of my buddies screwing around. And I knew it wasn't. I sat up. I turned around and looked. Are you ready for this? You're not ready for this. What I saw, this was winter by this time. What I saw was either a wolf or a coyote. It wasn't a big dog man thing like you hear about. It was a regular coyote-sized dog head. It was a coyote or a wolf. It had a top hat on. It had a shirt on. I swear to the Lord, this is true. It had a shirt on, and it had a vest, and it had a fob. So I don't know if it was a watch or whatever, but it had a fob. And it was grinning at me. It was grinning at me like this. And so now not only am I terrified, petrified, but now my worldview just shattered. My paradigm broke. Didn't know that, but that's what happened. Something broke. You're muted. You're muted,
So
Ryan.
it's wearing a top hat. Yeah. So it's wearing a top hat.
Yes.
And like it looks like the Monopoly Man almost, but this
Almost.
is a wolf or a coyote.
Yes. I swear to
What
God.
the heck is going on?
I don't like
Now,
even saying that.
okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. It's not
Yeah.
that I don't believe you're seeing
ask.
something.
I want you to ask.
Do you believe this was actual or something else was projecting this image to you?
I know it was real, and I'll tell you why. Because there was foot tracks in the snow. Dog prints in the snow. And I did show my dad that. Didn't tell him it was wearing that stuff. But I told
that
him,
outfit.
there was a dog on my roof, and he went, oh, stop. And I went, Dad, come. And he didn't want to even come and entertain my stupidity. He came to my room. I could see he was like not rolling his eyes, but he wanted to. And he looked out, and just for a split second, I saw for the first time in my dad, his eyes went boom, and then boom, like a split second. He caught himself, and then, it's probably one of those big cats. And his dad, look at those prints. They're not cat. And he just didn't want to acknowledge that it had to have been a dog, at least a dog. They were prints in the snow. They came up one side. They came up from the TV antenna side. And then there was activity where it had been moving around and like at my window. And then it left and went down the tree side. So one set of tracks, a bunch of his tracks where they've been, maneuvering around, whatever it was doing in the middle, sort of. And then one set of tracks leaving down the tree. That rocked me so bad that I asked my parents if I could have the bedroom downstairs in the basement where it was dark and scary. Well, I did not want to sleep in that room anymore. And my dad was absolutely not. Absolutely not. He said, son, even if there was a dog there, what's a dog going to do? Right? And he was right. Like, I couldn't tell him, Mom, what about a dog wearing a top hat, a vest, and a fob? What about that? Right? And I seem to remember, but I can't, I maybe shouldn't even give this detail because I'm not positive, but I think it had a walking stick that was coming up, but I'm not positive about that. Not positive about that. Dude.
In my mind, it already had a walking stick. So you didn't
Then-
you adding that was like, of course it did. Yeah, that's what I already. I imagine a monocle as well. Let's finish that that look story.
It didn't talk, but if it did, it would have sounded like Thurston Howell, I'm sure, right? Gilligan's Island. That, oh my, you can't even articulate what that did to me. You can't, because now anything and everything is possible. Anything and everything. I already knew I wasn't dreaming. Like some people say, oh, you had a dream, but just think of it this way, as if you and I are talking right now. If someone told you later that was a dream, you would know it was not a dream, right? You know when you're dreaming and when you're not. Some dreams are more real than others, but this was not a dream. Plus, when you see tracks in the snow, well, yeah, it's not a dream. It happened. These evil spirits, these evil things are messing with me, right? They're terrorizing me. They're tormenting me, and they love it. This thing was grinning at me like it just loved it. It knew exactly what it was doing, and it loved it, right? And then, if you read scripture, these demonic entities can appear as anything they want to, including Jesus. They can even look like Jesus. And in scripture, Jesus says you have to ask one question. Did you die and raise from the dead? Because they cannot lie about that. And a lot of accounts I've heard where people, not a lot, I've heard some people have said that the thing had left, right? Or it revealed its true self. So they can appear as anything they want, anything, even familiar spirits like your relatives or somebody that's famous that died. They can appear as anything they want to, right? So this thing was just messing with me. But amazingly, my experience with that Bible now starts coming more into play because shortly after that, not too long after that, maybe a week, maybe tops 2 weeks, I completely lost my fear of that thing. I lost my fear. I wasn't intentionally going, you can't be afraid. It just happened. I was no longer afraid of that thing showing up in my window. And then one night, the plastic kept going. Actually, after that night, the plastic shit started happening. Sorry, am I allowed to say shit?
Yeah, of course you are. Of course.
Okay. Shit, I didn't know if I was allowed to. But it started again. And so what happened one night was I was afraid, not petrified again. It never got me back to that level of fear again. And I'm laying there afraid again and thinking, stay still, stay still. And then all of a sudden I'm like, this is humiliating. I am absolutely ashamed of myself for letting this thing put fear into me. It humiliated me. And that turned into absolute anger and then rage. I freaking threw my covers back. I jumped out of bed and screamed as loud as I could, that is enough! Somehow, like I knew that thing was battling to come and get me or to get to me in my sister's house. I had that knowledge. That thing, when I did that, the fear it had put in me went on him all together, all at once. That accumulated terror and fear struck this thing, and it was absolutely out of its mind with terror, and it got out of there, and it never came back. It never came back. And so, yeah, it was powerful, but I had had enough, right? I had had enough. And I'll send you an email account of what happened that started this thing where shame snapped something in me, to where I was never afraid of like getting into a fight again, ever again. That happened when I was about 11 or 12 also, right around the same time, when I was surrounded by a gang of hooligans, rapscallions from another neighborhood who came with their bikes. There's like 12 or 13 of them. And there was me and two of my buddies who never had a fight in their lives, right? And they were looking for a specific person who I knew, and I wouldn't tell them where he lived, and so they wanted to kill me, right? And so I had to Yeah, and I knew my buddies would be of no help at all. And plus, just because we're a couple of years older too, we were going to get destroyed. So I weaseled out of it, and I was so disgusted in myself, Ryan. I was so disgusted. And on my way home, I almost felt a snap inside, and I never had fear of physical fights, no matter if there was 10 people or one giant person. Never feared another fight again in my entire life. Never feared it. And I won't even get into that, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
no worries. Yeah.
Yeah. But so that's what happened that night with this demonic thing. Something in me snapped, and I lost fear, and I got enraged because I was ashamed that I was afraid. I was ashamed. It really humiliated me, even though there was nobody there. It was humiliating, and I had enough. And I figured, whatever happens, happens. What's this thing done so far? Nothing to me. Just made noise. That's the same thing with the other thing. All it did was make noise. It was scary, but didn't touch me, didn't hurt me in any way, didn't drag me around or, which I know people have had those experiences, but it didn't do that to me. And so in that house, nothing ever happened again. We moved out of that house. My dad retired, and they bought a business north of Toronto in a small town, a really small town. And it was really quite an adjustment for me. Big city dude and all, And and I used to drive back every weekend and spend the whole weekend with my friends, or if I had a week off, I just couldn't stand it. And then eventually it began to turn, and I loved it. And I started staying, and I made better, not better, but a lot of good friends, and stuff like that. And I stayed. So I'm trying to remember the exact very first thing that happened in that town. I think it was like the most significant thing. I won't bog it down with little things that happened, but the most significant thing that happened, the first thing that happened was when I was in I was in music from when I was 15, 16. And then really I went pro when I was about 18 or 19, I think I went pro. And I was a lead vocalist, I was a writer, and played rhythm guitar. And I started out in cover bands. We were doing like Triumph and Zeppelin and classic rock. And yeah, and I was fortunate because the guys I got in contact with back then, really when I was not really that experienced, but I always had talent for vocals and writing. Were really, really good musicians, really good. So I didn't have to go through the grind that most 90% of other musicians I know had to start out in horrible bands, or they were horrible and they had to work their way through years and years of it's a slog. Like playing for 5 or 6 people in a hole down in Lakeshore, no fun. But I managed to luck into some really good musicians, and then you meet better ones through those musicians. And so I got on a sort of a fast track. It still took a good 10 years before real serious bands were coming looking and wanting me to join their band. And then labels started talking to us and setting appointments up and things like that. It took about 10 years, which is nothing, right? And so I got into this one band, and I mean, these guys are serious business. And we started getting really popular, and we got the attention of 2 of the top U.S. labels. Like, we're in Canada. 2 top U.S. labels wanted to sit down and speak to us. Not a meeting yet, but they came and sent people and spoke to us at a club around. Things were rolling, right? And none of the guys in my band could write if their left nut depended on it. They just could not write, And I always had a real talent for writing. And so I was writing all the stuff. And so I started feeling a little, well, they weren't going to get any writing royalties. And that's a huge percentage of any musician's income when you're when you're at that level. Wasn't at that level yet, right? But I knew it was going that way if things worked out. And I'm not saying they would have, but who knows? But and so I started asking them to write. Hey, come on, guys, you got to write some songs, or you're not going to make any good money. You make good money, but and they just couldn't do it. They were terrible. And so I started co-writing with a couple of guys, and eventually, they had maybe 3 or 4 words in their songs, and the rest were mine. But they got a writing credit, and so I was doing that. I was trying to be fair. And it's not
Fair
like
enough.
it's not like you can say, "Oh, I'm going to split all my writing royalties," because the agents They don't want that. They don't want to do that because their percentage gets split up along with that, along with the other. Like the less of the pie there is, the less a percentage of that pie they're going to get, right? So they don't want that. They want one guy to have all that. If the other guys have their own stuff, great, but they don't want it split up and spread out, and they're quite pushy about that. So I was trying to help them in other ways, and I would have done that anyways. If we had got a deal, I would have done it anyways. Fuck the agent. Oh, sorry, screw the agents. I would have done it anyways. I would have split it.
That's all right.
Damn, I don't even like doing that in my own personal self, but it comes out once in a while. But so I was in that atmosphere, and I started meeting really disturbing people. And like we would do a show, and then you would have backstage passes, either on a fob card or you'd have a big sticker on your leg that you would slap on. And then you can get backstage. But you wouldn't believe the friggin' shenanigans some people would get up to get a stage pass to get back there. And some of the worst ones are drug dealers, right? They want to make those connections. They want those connections, and they know they'll make good money, and they pay a lot of money. They bribe people to get back there. And so these people are back there. So you go back there, and like there was a typical backstage where we were at venue at the time. You could get maybe 200, 250 people back there, right? And there's always like huge tables, rows of tables, and all kinds of like food, like sandwiches, meat, all kinds of stuff. Buckets of beer, buckets of booze, whatever you want was right there for people backstage to have couches and everything, right? Private rooms, which our band frowned upon. I made that known too, and I know this is going to sound a little maybe arrogant, I don't know, but I let the guys know in the band, like with backstage stuff, I'm not going to put up with any bullshit, like abusing women or taking advantage of kids or anything like that. None of that's going to fucking happen. So there I go again. And if it ever did, I kicked one guy out because we warned him that a good friend of mine he wanted to be a roadie, so I let him do a couple of shows. His sister was like one of the most beautiful women you would ever see in your life, but she was only 14, but she looked like she was 20. She was gorgeous. And I told just one particular guy because I knew he was a friggin' weasel, a drummer, of course. That's why Spinal Tap drummers always died. They're weasels, right? But I warned him. I said, he's 14
my
years
friend,
old.
my good friend is probably like, we're not weasels. I know he's in the background probably listening to this, and
Not
he'll
all
be saying
drummers,
that.
bro.
So,
Not all drummers. Not you
all right.
for sure.
We'll say,
But,
Stu, don't worry about it. Yeah.
I've heard about you, Stu. You're top of the line, bro. So, so I told him, don't go near her. She's 14 years old. Stay away. And he couldn't do that. So he was out. I had no compulsion about it. He was out. And the guy we got to replace him wasn't as good, but at least he wasn't a friggin' animal, right? So I'm not putting up with that. So these guys are getting back there anyway, these drug dealers, and then I start getting into it. Stupid. I was already doing drugs anyway from the time I was like 15. I was doing a lot of acid. Like I did 9 hits one night, nine double microdots, purple microdots, double barrel. That's because I don't know if you ever got into that when you were a kid, but
no, I didn't.
Oh, so I wish I had never touched it. But if you do 2 one night, you have to do 4 the next night, or they won't work. So you got to double up, right?
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, and so they work, but not to the extent you want them to work. So I did 9. I did 9 one night. Bashed them down. Saw cartoon land and little elves and dwarves running up these cartoon hills and shovels and picks, and it was crazy. But then you could shut it off whenever you wanted to and turn it back on. The acid was kind of like that. When you got like good acid and you didn't get stuff like hit with strychnine or something like that, then it was real bad acid. But I was doing cocaine and I was doing heroin, and I never did needles. I just refused to do needles. I'm not afraid of them. I mean, I have real bad health. I've had numerous surgeries. I'm not afraid of needles in the least. But I just did not want to do needles because there's too much risk, right? There's too much risk.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I did heroin in capsules. And it looked like honey. It looked like honey. It was like brown. And you would get in a capsule and pop it back, right? You could snort it, you could smoke it, and I did that too. But I really liked the capsules. And so I started getting into that kind of thing. And it got out of hand pretty quick. and I was freebasing coke and smoking coke. It was just crazy. Ryan was crazy. And yeah. And this went on for years, and I got myself a really serious addiction, serious. So I had to use every 5 or 6 hours, or I would start getting really sick, right? And withdrawal. If you've never experienced it, don't judge anybody and say, well, you just stop. No, it doesn't work like that. Withdrawal is a completely different animal to any kind of medical thing you could ever imagine. It's the most horrible thing you could ever imagine in your life. I never ended up getting to the point where I had to screw people around, but it would have if I had been out of that band, didn't have access like I did. I probably would have got to that point. Where people who are really good people, who would never steal in their lives, who would never lie, would do anything they had to do to keep from being sick. It's that friggin' bad. It's horrible. And people do horrible things on it. Yeah. I've had people steal a lot of stuff off me too, and I understood it. I didn't like it, but I understood it. It's horrible. So you can't really judge. I'm not saying you have to like people like that, and don't ever help somebody along like that. Like if they want help, you can offer them. You'll take them to the hospital or to get cleaned up. That's the only help you have to offer them. Don't ever give them money. Don't ever say, well, okay, I'll go get you some stuff. You're not helping them. You're not helping them. That's my little rant. Sorry. So I got in bad shape, bro. Bad shape. So then there was people hanging around who were into witchcraft. And then I met some young women that were into that, but they're also into Satan worship. I didn't believe in that crap. I knew Satan was real and everything, but I wasn't like, I believed in Jesus, but I wasn't following Christ by any means. I didn't want him around. I was having too much fun with drugs, women, booze, and standing on stage. I mean, there's not a better feeling. It's a total ego trip. It's a complete ego trip. It's a rejection of everything Christ is about, because he's the only one that deserves that kind of adoration. We don't deserve that. We just don't, right? And I'm not saying being in music is bad. It's not. But don't do it for those reasons where you think, oh, man, look at me. I'm awesome. Don't ever do it like that, ever. You'll pay for that. You will pay for that, which is what I was doing, right? And I mean, it's so tempting, Ryan, when you have like beautiful young women at the front, just, boy, you ever see these before? Things like that, right? And anyway, you know what happens in that lifestyle. You know what goes on in that lifestyle. I was doing that. So these two women, and they were, oh my God, they were gorgeous women too, just gorgeous women. They wanted me to go downtown Toronto with them to the supply depot. And I'm like, what's supply depot? Well, you'll see, just come. So we went downtown Toronto. It was like around, trying to remember the area, Yonge and Dundas area, somewhere down there. I used to get my hair cut down there at House of Lords, but in Toronto, in Ontario, Canada. But there was some of these buildings have been there for a long time, and there's really weird setups, because you have buildings that are maybe 15 feet wide and like 4 or 5 stories high beside other tall buildings that are normal size, and you just have these little anomalies in between. You may have seen these homes that are real skinny too, where the houses are just. And so it was one of those. And we walked in, I was like, well, what the heck is this, right? We go up these old creaky stairs, and we get up to the next floor. And, I mean, they're really deep. They're really long. They're like, I don't know, maybe 70 feet deep, right? Really, really deep. And they took up the next floor, so it was really high. And there was all kinds of buckets of different colored candles, different kinds of candles. There were swords, like even like the old Scottish William Wallace, two-fisted, hack your body in half, or two of your friends at the same time swords. It was just crazy. They had everything there. They had smaller swords, they had daggers, ceremonial daggers, just whatever your mind can imagine that you've ever seen in movies or documentaries. It's there. This is where they get their stuff, or other places. But this is where you can stock up, let's say. And there's all kinds of spices and herbs and books and spells and potions. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. Everywhere you look.
Sorry,
yeah.
Jack, was this a store, or was just a place to participate and use these items?
No, it was a store. It was a store.
Okay.
I would not have gone if there was any participation stuff, even when I was a filthy heathen. I just wouldn't do it, right? But, it was a store. And, I mean, it was just so mind-blowing, because it was almost a dichotomy where you're walking into this tiny little harmless looking, tiny. Like, what is this? I mean, do they sell miniature furniture for dollhouses here? What's going on? And then, right, and then you get up there and it's this whole, oh my God, you're overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed. And there's a feeling up there that their God is not there. I had that feeling one time in a church I went to, and I found out later they tricked us, and it was a Seventh-day Adventist. And as soon as I walked in with my sons, and there was all these pamphlets went up, and they're doing a presentation on end times and stuff, and I was doing a study on it. So I should have looked it up. I normally would, but I just thought, hey, this just came, let's go, and we went. And I walked in with my boys, my three boys and a friend of mine, Donnie. And I went, God's not here, boys. God is not here. And we sat down, and then the guy went through his deal, and then I realized what was going on, and we got out of there. So that place had that feeling. God was not there. Not there. They got their stuff. And then, there's no use trying to talk to these girls. At the time, I could have cared less anyway what they were doing. But, I mean, had I been, like that happened now, there's nothing you can say that's going to make them think that they're doing anything harmful. They think they're helping people with their spells, but they really do. And they think if you put white in front of magic or white in front of witchcraft, that makes it cool. They think that. But, I mean, you can't help people like that. You can. I feel almost obligated to say, oh, look, this is this, but I'm not going to push. I'm not going to be confrontational with people. I'm not going to judge them or tear them down. But I'm going to say, look, this is what I think.
You can always plant the seed, and from there you can hope it germinates, but that's about it. That's,
100%.
you can only do so much.
100%. And that's all we're called to do. We're not God. God has to do the rest, right? And it's up to people whether they want to accept it or not, right? So, that's the kind of thing that was going on in my life. I was surrounded by dark things and even things I couldn't understand. I think my dog's wants out last. He's screw. But so I didn't realize that these kind of things, it's not just harmless. It's not just, oh, that's just what these people are into, but I'm around them. It's going to affect you in some way. Spiritual forces in there will hone right in on somebody like me or you and go, oh, I'm going to go screw with this guy. So it was around that time that I had one of the most incredible experiences. And it was my wife. We'd just been married. I can't even remember how long. It wasn't very long at all. We didn't even have our first son, and he was born just a little over a year later. So we're probably married 2 or 3 months at this time. We were both in bed sleeping, and I had one of the most realistic, but absolutely most terrifying nightmare I've ever had in my life. It was absolutely incredibly petrifying, terrifying. Almost as bad as the experiences I had. Not quite, but it was bad. And at some point, I realized, okay, this is a nightmare. This has got to be a nightmare, and I'm trying to wake myself up. And so I was at my childhood home, the one that I had those experiences in. I was in the basement. I was in my brother's old room, and it was pitch black. And I'm looking around, and I see someone in the corner, sitting in the corner, looking at me, and it's my brother. But it's not my brother. It's just a wicked, wicked version of him. And he said, you need to go next door now. And I don't know why I did, but I did. I went outside. And when I went outside, it was daylight, but it was like a cloudy day. It wasn't dark, but it wasn't bright by no means. And something felt so artificial. There was nobody around, no birds, no sound, no noise, nothing. It was like an artificial world. And that was disturbing, right? And so I walked to my neighbor's house right next door, and I grew up. I used to play with the girl next door house, not play with in that ignorant way. But what the hell's wrong with me, Ryan? What's wrong with me, Ryan? And anyway. So I went in the house. I knocked on the door, and come in. And where's Carolyn? She's down in the basement. Okay, so I went downstairs, and this house is always filthy, right? Like there was laundry heaped on the entire basement. It was covered in laundry, like old clothing, I guess. Wouldn't be laundry, it was old clothing. You would have to step over, And then there was always board games scattered everywhere, like pieces and board games everywhere. It was just a mess. The house was clean on top, but the kids' area was a sty. And so my mom would have strung me up by my little toe if I ever had done anything like that, right? So I'm walking in down there, and then I get that evil feeling, not full blown, but it's something's not right here. And I'm look, Carolyn, back here. And I look, and it's a witch. And it's a scary witch, and a really terrifying, evil witch. And I turn and I start trying to run, and all of a sudden I'm in quicksand. I can barely go, and I'm fighting so hard to go. I'm fighting so hard. I get out the door, and I feel her like just touch my hair, trying to grab me. So she's on me, and I'm out there, and I get going. I go into my house, and I'm barely able to grab my door, and I'm pulling it open. And that's when I realize this is a nightmare, and I'm going, wake up, wake up, wake up. And I'm fighting, and I'm fighting. And then suddenly I sit up, and I sit right up into a sitting position. I'm friggin' pouring sweat. And right in front of me is this, it looks like mist, a cloud kind of thing, mist. It wasn't like cigarette smoke, but it was kind of like fog and smoke, cigarette smoke combined, kind of that consistency. I know that might not make sense. It didn't have any like defined edges, but it had parameters. So it was sort of like 2 feet wide, maybe. But like I said, it was not defined edges. It was mist, smoke, right? And it was maybe 3 feet high. And on the outside, it was like a gray. And as you went in, it got darker and darker and darker. And in the middle, there was a dark thing in the middle like that, which I think was its evil spirit, is what I think it was. This thing was right in front of my face like this. And the whole room was black, like way blacker than it should have been. And that evil atmosphere was there. But when I shot up like that into a sitting position, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my wife, boink, same thing, sat right up like that with me. And she was sweating too. And she saw this thing and she screamed. And it took off and it went down to the footboard and it stopped. And it made a right angle turn like that fast. And went this way to the wall, to the southern wall. It stopped and it shot right up and went up into the ceiling and into the attic, and it was gone. And we were like, what the? And I said, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Tell me something. Tell me exactly what happened before you even sat up. And she described to me having the worst dream of her life. She somehow realized it was a nightmare and started fighting to wake up. And then she said she just sat up and saw exactly what I just described. She had the exact same experience as I had. And here's what I think happened. I think that thing was there to possess or do something not good. Not good. I think it was an evil spirit. And I think, I believe in guardian angels 100%. They're biblical. They're spiritual. And I think they freaking warned us. Get up now. Get up now. They're not allowed to intervene unless Christ tells them to. And so they couldn't just scare this thing away and let us sleep. They had to wake us up, and we had to do something. And so when we woke up and saw this thing was right there, and again, I got this feeling, and my wife did too. I can get her to come and describe it if you want, but she'll tell you the exact same thing if you want to. I'll tell her. This thing got terrified. It got terrified when it realized, oh, they're awake, they're up, and then it took off. Now, up in that, where it went to...
Caught in the act is kind of what it was. It was like
caught... Exactly. I was building a studio in that attic because that was an old Victorian house we were buying. We didn't buy it yet, but we were buying. At that point, we didn't buy it, and it had it was so beautiful. It had it was a full attic. It had a split level floor, just over a foot split level, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gables. 6 gable ends windows, like they were inset, so they had benches below them, and they had like gingerbread framing on the outside. Oh my, it was just beautiful. And I was putting hardwood flooring up there, walnut flooring, and building a studio up there, and a party den on the other side, right? Because they had a solid glass window for the sound booth and everything going. And this thing went up into that area. And so the next day, I wasn't going up there right away. The next day, I think, or no, it was later on. No, it wasn't the next day. I went up there. Again, it was a pull-down ladder. I didn't put any stairs in there. I was going to put a spiral stair in. And I went up there, and I got no impression at all anything was going on up there. But, I mean, that just threw my wife right off. She wanted out of there. And we ended up leaving there.
But do you think it was the place, or possibly it was following you?
No, it was following me from, I believe it was because of the lifestyle I was leading.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
heavy duty drugs. I cheated on my wife. I told her about it, but I cheated on her and felt like a complete bag of garbage for that. I had to tell her. I told my sons. I told everybody. And just that lifestyle and withdrawing quite a bit, and then I have to make a call. Because what was going on is people that wanted backstage were going to give me whatever I wanted anytime I wanted it at no charge, right? Which made it so much worse. If I had gone through withdrawal a few times and not had any means to support, I would have maybe got help and stopped that earlier. But because it was always there, I just had no, I just kept saying, oh, I'm going to quit later. It's okay right now. I'm going to quit later. And it got worse and worse and worse and worse. Do you want me to get into my encounter with Christ?
Please, yes, let's do that. Yeah, let's see. So, it kind of seems to culminate to this point then, like...
Yeah, it does.
It's fine. Yeah, let's go from there.
It does. The band, I'd stopped going to meetings and everything. I was just out of control. I just wanted to get high and I just didn't want to be around. And they knew I was effed up. And they were trying to help me, and they kept, bugging me about it. And so I was just staying away. And trying to remember the exact order of things. I don't want to screw it up. Okay, so I got a call from my buddy Dave, who was one of the lead guitar players. And he's actually my dearest friend right now. I've known him for longer than I've known my wife. We've been married for 40 years. And he calls me and he says, good news, man, really good news. I said, what's going on? He said, we have an appointment with, I won't mention the label, with this label. And I mean, it's, if not one of the top U.S. labels. We have an appointment, a meeting. Oh, awesome. And also we have a meeting with this other label because they're trying to make work out an arrangement where one of them, trying to remember the details. One of them was going to distribute so many thousand copies. The other was going to work out to do the deal. I wasn't there, so I can't give you the exact details. And I'll tell you what happened shortly thereafter. So I was like, oh, this is awesome, man. I mean, it doesn't guarantee anything. But, I mean, if you're getting in the door, you got a shot at least, right? You got a shot. And when you hear the one song I wrote, you tell me if you think I think we would have got tonight. But anyway, there's my arrogance popping out. So as soon as I hung up, my heart sank because immediately I went, oh my God, this is not Jim Morrison era. They're going to see me walk in there and they're going to say, they're going to hit a secret button under the desk and I'm going to disappear on the floor. And that's going to be it because they're not putting up with that now. They're not putting up with it. And why would they? Look at the mess all those guys in the 70s caused. And labels, I mean, that did a lot to destroy the business end of it because the labels don't need to put up with that crap, right? Not showing up on big concerts or causing a scene or you know what it is. And so I knew I had to get straight or there was no way they were ever going to have anything to do with me, and then therefore the band either. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get a bunch of drugs and I'm going to wean myself on. Good idea, right? And I'm not going to go into great detail right here, right now. It would take way too long, and certain things I just don't want to expose right now. I'll tell you privately. How's that? Is that okay?
Sounds good. Yes.
Certain details I'll tell you privately. So I started that plan, and it failed miserably because what I had intended on doing was taking some drugs and waiting a little longer than I normally would, taking a little bit, waiting even longer, and sort of stretching it out like that, day by day, week by week, and then getting on. But very quickly, it was like, oh, I can't wait. Well, I'm going to do it now, and I'll wait. Next time I'll wait longer. Next time I'll wait longer. And then pretty soon it was all gone, right? Within a matter of, I don't know, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, it was gone. And now it's, I don't know, it's maybe 2 a.m. I'm in I wouldn't say it was remote, but pretty remote area. I don't have access to my friends, so I'm going to have to get through the night, and I know I can't do it. I can't do it. I got so sick, man. I was withdrawing, and nobody was home. I was so ill. I started contemplating, I can't take this. I can't take it. I'm just going to open a vein. I'm going to open a vein. I can't handle it. And I mean, I'm not even giving you the details of how desperate and how bad it was. It was bad. It was freaking bad. I was laying on the floor beside a bed, and I was just rolling, like just trying to get some kind of comfort, but it wasn't coming. And then I just started thinking, okay, I have a knife right there. I'm just going to do it. I just can't handle it. I'm so sorry. I couldn't even leave a note. Nothing. And by that time, we had, I'm trying to remember if we had two or one. We had at least one boy, one baby. They're all men now. Like my oldest is 40, but it was bad, man. It was bad, Ryan. I was in such bad shape. And right when I'm going to get up and grab that thing and do what I had to do, I hear my name spoken. And I'm thinking, what? Did I hear that? Is this withdrawal? And then as I'm thinking this, I hear it again. And only this time, it's powerful. It's mighty. It's authoritative. It's God. And I knew it was Christ. I knew it was Jesus. I knew it. There was no doubt in my mind. It was Jesus. He spoke my name. And he was right behind me. I did not dare turn my head and look at him. I did not dare. Because as petrified as I was from all those past experiences, if you rolled all those things into one, it would not be a pebble on all the beaches in the universe of the fear I felt in the presence of Jesus Christ. Not a pebble. And it was mighty, mighty, and authoritative, and well, all those descriptions. I mean, and more. And at the same time, it was exhilarating, and it was holy, and there was hope, and I just can't even describe it, man. It was two things at once. And he spoke to me. He told me some things that I'm not going to repeat. I'll tell you some of the things. And then in front of me was my father, my mother, my two sisters, and my brother. They're standing right there, plain as day. Like I could have touched me. And it freaked me out even more. Like did I die? What's going on? And then one disappeared, another disappeared, and they're all gone. And I didn't even see them go. They just weren't there no more. It's so hard to explain. It's not like I saw a little trail or a little vapor. They were just not there anymore. And I was so confused. And then I was told that I would understand later. And I was led to know that would be, that he did that so that I would know it was the Lord and not an imposter. That would be one of the things he did. He also told me some details that he said would happen, some shortly and some later, that I was to look for, specifically look for, and that would also be to corroborate it was really the Lord. And see, at the time, in that band, we weren't bringing any money in. I wasn't working another job. My wife was working her ass off, but she wasn't making much. We were staying with her parents. It was a bad situation. We really saw no way out of it. We did have her son. And we were desperately trying for me to either get another job or get this music thing going forward and make some real money so I could support my family. Because everybody who's been in music knows it's on again and it's off. Even if you're a pro and you got to get jobs. And at that time, clubs weren't hiring bands anymore. Like some were, but I mean, and then others like on and off. It was DJs. It was live music. It wasn't, DJs, live, or not live music. And they saved a lot of money that way. And I mean, people loved it because you could hear what you want, when you want, the way you want. Right? You're not having to go, oh, no, this band's not very good. Let's get out of here, and take a chance. So it was bad. It was bad. But because we were at a little bit of a higher level, our hope and was, well, these appointments we were going to make. This is good news. But then this happens. This happens. So he told me that, he told me that very quickly we were going to have our own place, and it was not going to be a house. But he said, the house is coming. The house is coming, he said. And he said, it's going to get even better after that. These aren't his exact words. And when he speaks to you, like I said, I just didn't have I was not going to look. I was too terrified to look because I would have melted. I was just a filthy, dirty, sinning piece of garbage, right? I cheated on my wife. I rejected God. even after my parents were so good. Like my dad didn't really want to believe in God because of the experiences he saw in the war. He said it knocked the God out of him, but he came back. But my mom was a good God, Christ believing woman, and she kept trying to get me saved, and I just kept, And so there's plenty of chances. And he said also that I put people in your life and you rejected them. Because he works through other people mostly. Like he'll bring someone into your life that'll say, look, man, this is what Jesus is all about. This is what you're doing and this is what's happening. And you'll reject them or you won't reject them. Or you'll think about it and that'll, like you said, it'll plant a seed and then you'll either water it or you'll just kick it in and carry on. But he puts people in our lives all the time, right? We either accept them or we reject them. And he told me that. I put people in your life and you just kept going your own way. And I mean,
it's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, man. I was that close to going to hell. That close. And it's real. It's real, man. Don't listen to people that tell you it's not real. God will kill the body and it's real. Jesus said it'll be eternal suffering for eternity. He's not lying. I'm not here to do that anyway, but I'm just saying that's how terrifyingly close I was to having that experience, right? And then once you're in it, you're in it. The dishes are done. You're finished. And I still don't know why. Well, I know I love me, but why does he intervene with some people and not with others? And I guess it's because he knows everything. He knows our thoughts. He knows the future. He knows who's going to accept this and who's not going to accept that and who's going to do good things for somebody else, even if they reject. He knows. And that's the only, because I don't know why he would waste his time with me because of the life I was leading at the time, right? I'm being honest. That's simple. And he did. And so he told me to look out for those things. And he was just gone. And I just sobbed like a little girl, man. I just could not believe it just happened. When you are in the presence of the Lord, it's just beyond that, bro. It's beyond that. It's beyond it, right? It's, I can't wait to see him again. I can't wait to go there, man. I just can't wait. But it's not just seeing his majesty and his power and his might, but it's knowing that he is the source of love. He is the source of love. And his light shines on weeds right now as much as it shines on flowers, right? But the time's coming when that light's coming off of the weeds. And so God loves everybody. We got to get that through our minds. Even the person we would think is the most disgusting. And I'm not saying we have to put up with anything like that, but we have to keep in mind that God loves us all. And if you reject God, you're going away, and it's going to break his heart. It breaks his heart. Every single one of us that ends up rejecting him and doing wicked, evil things, and then it breaks his heart. He sobs. And the angels in heaven sob. But every time someone accepts the Lord, they freaking can't believe they cheer. They're so happy. And we have to remember, there's no time. There's no time in heaven. I've been there, and I'll tell you about that. There's no time there. Everything happens at once. We can't comprehend it. But if you think about it, you're living right now. You're not living back then, and you're not living you're living right now. Everything happened and happens right now. Okay, so there is no time. We can't comprehend it. Time is an illusion. But when you're in heaven, it becomes even, you're aware of it, and it's just, oh my God, it's beautiful, brother. And so when people think, well, how can he do that? And how can they all cheer every time someone gets saved? Because there's no time. They don't need to take time to stop and cheer for this person and stop and cheer for that person. There's no time. It's happening, right? That's the best I can do to explain it. But they do. They celebrate. They love it when people are saved. They're like, oh, thank you. And the Lord loves it too, man. And it breaks his heart when one of us is lost. And that's why it's so important for us to try to keep that in mind and try just to tell people, look, there's another way, right? Don't be pushy. Yeah, don't be pushy. Don't think you're a priest or a pastor. Actually, I'm not going to talk poorly about certain faiths, but some faiths are a little bit lost on certain things. But I believe in Jesus. I don't care about Catholicism, I don't care about that stuff. The Bible is the Word of God. It's the true Word of God. You don't need a spin. Just read it. And the way to read it is just to understand it literally. That's not saying take everything literally. Understand it literally. When Christ,
I agree with you, Jack. Now, like So this event happened. Okay, so you
Yeah, I'm getting.
you had your encounter with God.
Yeah.
Where did that go from there then?
Okay, I know I got on a tangent, didn't I?
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, from there it was like a matter of 2 days later. I got a phone call, and some woman goes. She asked my name, Jack, and yep, speaking. Oh, your apartment came available. I can't believe it. It became available, and I go, what are you talking about? What apartment? You applied for such and such an apartment? No, I didn't. Is your name such and such? Yeah. Is your number such and such? Yeah. Do you live? Yeah. You did. You applied for this, several months back. So I'm listening. What's going on? Well, there was a backlog to people that were waiting to get that apartment. Like there's just a lot of people that wanted, and they all found other accommodations, and it's available. You can move in. And I'm like, what? He told me this was coming, but I didn't see it coming in that way. Here again, we always have our mind and our idea, and what happens is different. So we moved to even another. We're in the same town right now. It's a small lakeside town. It's beautiful, right by the lake, and we got this brand new apartment. And then they start building these townhouses just across the road. Basically, this is going to be quick, and then I'll get to another part. And we're like, oh man, wouldn't it have been great if we could have just got one of those, right? So hey, let's apply. So we applied, and they're like, nah, there's at least a 5-year waiting list. You can put your name in, but it's a minimum 5 years. Okay, so we put our name in. 2 weeks later, we get a call. This woman says, everybody, basically the same story. Everybody who had applied found other accommodations. The house is yours. So we moved into a brand new townhouse, right? Now, yeah, and exactly what he told me was going to happen. And so now I became seriously ill. My wife woke up and I was like almost dead. And the ambulance came and rushed me to the hospital. They got me to emergency surgery right away. I had my gallbladder removed a year before. But when she went in to get it with, like, they just poke little holes and they go in with a little scope thing and they pop it out. But when she went in, it was so big that as soon as she touched it, it burst and I was bleeding internally. So they had to do an emergency. They cut me open and the surgeon said, look, it was pretty bad, but I managed to I cut the like 99% of it and stitched it. So she says, theoretically, it's not really all out, but it's just a little flap it's been stapled shut. It'll never bother you again. Well, what happened was a little tiny stone developed and grew and grew and grew. And I had massive stones in this little thing. And it was pushing against my bile duct and almost killed me, right? It was toxins going through my body. And I felt horrible for like a couple of months. I was feeling horrible and then it got worse and worse. And then, of course, they didn't go get it took care of. So when they're in there, the surgeon told me later that this thing had moved because things move around when you're in surgery. They don't just drill through; they move stuff around to get at it. So he said when they went in to take care of this, it wasn't where it was supposed to be, and so they had to keep cutting and cutting and cutting until they had a big enough area where they could safely cut everything out. So I ended up getting cut from here. Oh, you want to see it? I don't know if you can see it, but you see that?
Jeez, yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was another one. But they cut me right across. And this was just a little gallbladder surgery, right? So I wake up, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be going home that day. And they're like, wake up, Jack, you're not going home. And so I pull the blankets down. And I go, what'd you do, pull my legs out? Like, did you pull my legs out of my stomach? What'd you do? And so they explained it to me. That night, they brought me back to my room. And I started sweating and I started feeling horrible. And I started feeling like I'm going to pass out. So I'm trying to find my button and I can't find it. I just bang and I passed out. Then I hear talking and it kind of brings me around, but I can't even lift my head up. And I'm so screwed up and I don't know why. I can't speak. I'm just out of it. And I'm barely able to look and I see these 2 young nurses walking in and it's dark out. I imagine it's early in the morning. Well, it turned out it was. And they were yapping. I could hear them when I first heard them coming down the hall, yap, 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 yap. They nonstop talked the whole time down the hall in my room. They looked at me, oh, we have to change this one. They got another like a stretcher beside my bed, and they got a slide board. They put me on it, and they slid me off onto this other bed. Changed all my bedding because it was soaking wet, which should have clued them in. Something's wrong. It was literally soaked, like you threw a bucket of water on it. I'm not kidding. And so was I. And they were yapping and yapping, and they looked like they're maybe 18, 19 years old, both of them, and they're in charge of night shift. Are you kidding me? So they changed my clothing, everything. Changed me out, roll me, slide me back in, and they're still talking, and then they leave. They didn't acknowledge me one bit. They didn't look at me, and because if they had, I would have been like a pathetic sight, and they would have went, something's wrong. And they did that 3 more times through the night. 3 more times, it didn't clue in. Yeah, I know. One time would have been bad enough, but 3 more times, 4 times, they had to do a whole change. The next morning, I had a nurse who had taken care of me on and off for a few years. I'm in and out of hospital because I had kidney problems. And I got to know her. She's a really, really beautiful woman, really nice woman, inside and out, just a beautiful woman. And it wasn't her shift. She didn't have me on her shift that day, but she just wanted to come in and say hi. And it was like 6:30 in the morning. So I'm just looking at the door like this, begging for someone to look at me and then maybe try to get their attention. I don't know how long it was like that. And she comes in and she goes, "Hi, Jack." And she looks at me and her eyes go like pie pants. She spins around and runs out of the hall and screaming at these 2 nurses and just letting them have it, like just screaming at the top of her lungs. "Call emergency right now, blah, 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 blah." The next thing I know, I hear like a stampede coming down the hall, and I'm still not with it. I'm still not understanding what's going on. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, somebody must be in bad shape. And they come down the hall, oh, it's near. And then they're in my room, right? And then there's all these nurses. I don't know how many were there. There's a bunch of them. And the surgeon, and he was a big dude too. And he looks down at me and his eyes go like that too. And now I'm like, uh-oh, there's a problem now. Because he was terrified. Now he starts screaming, like he's screaming. And pretty soon I'm on a stretcher and they're running down the hall. Get out of the way, get out of the way. They're running, Ryan. And they get me to the elevator to get me down a couple of floors, and I go through some imaging. I think it was a CAT scan at first. You get me in the CAT scan. These are important details. I wouldn't waste your time, but I'll get through. The CAT scan sees nothing, right? Sees nothing. They know there's an infection somewhere, and it sees nothing. So they run me to this other type of imaging machine. Sees nothing. And then they run, and each time they're running and screaming because like it's a matter of, I guess, minutes. I don't know. It seemed like it. I could die. And they go to me, "I'm really sorry about this." And nurse, "I'm really sorry. This is going to hurt." And she wheels me into this one, another imaging. And what they do is they pump air into your stomach so they can see. So there's no, they can see better. And when they pump this air in, oh, it hurt so bad. Blood started draining down my staples. Oh, it was all pouring down. It hurt so bad. And they saw nothing. So then they get me out in the hall and the doctor goes, "Pull those staples." I just got them in, so he knows something's going to open, right? Because I'm going in the MRI. And one end did open, but amazingly, most of it stayed shut. They get me in there. When they're done, they park me right beside the imaging, the room where they see all the screens. And I was able to look over and I look and I see the screen. And right over top of my heart is a mass about that big. It's all white. And I know that I'm dead. It's right over my heart, right there. It's huge. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm not, there's no way I'm coming home. So I'm praying to God, please take care of my wife, my kid, and I'm doing all this. They wheel me into the CT again. And the guy says, "I'm really sorry. This is going to hurt, but I'll put some freezing in because you got to put a drain in, right?" And so he puts freezing in and he starts cutting. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So the freezing was defective and he was cutting into me without any freezing. And nurse says, "Yeah." And the nurse says, "Well, I'm going to run down to the pharmacy and get another one." He goes, "No time." No time? They strap my hands to the gurney and he has nurses laying on my legs, another nurse on my hips, and they put my head down there and a towel across it, and one nurse sitting on this end of the towel and one on this end, so I can't move my head. And I'm mad. I don't like being held down. I said, "I won't move. Get them off me. I will not move." He said, "Sir, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never had a patient that hasn't moved a lot. This hurts. I'm sorry, they're staying." I said, "Get them off. I promise I won't move." And he refused. Then he pulls up this big nickel tool. It's a big tool. It looks like a chisel. and it's got like an end on it, a pen-sized end with a syringe tip on it. And he goes, I have to pound this into your chest after I cut you open. It's gonna hurt bad. I said, get it done, but get them off me. Someone get them off. So he cuts me open, no freezing. He gets this thing and he pounds it, and it goes in and busts through the layers. And then he puts a wire through, and he's looking at the CT scan, and he sees where it goes right into this white blob. And then he threads a tube over that, and which is the drain tube, and then he pulls the wire out. And then he pulls the tool out, and then he stitched it so it wouldn't come out here. And then he attached the drain and started draining. And I won't even describe what came out of it. But he filled up several bottles before it started to slow down. As soon as he sent me back to my room, I was somewhere else. I was not in the hospital anymore. I was in. Have you ever been in a lake and it had a lot of algae in it? And when you go underneath, you open your eyes, it looks like green in the water.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. And the sun shining through, and it just has a green tinge. That's what it looked like. It looked exactly like that. And I felt like I was like floating, but I was not like floating up. I was just in one spot, and I felt like I was floating. And it was this beautiful green hue, and it felt like I was in water, warm, beautiful water, but I could breathe perfectly. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even breathing. I didn't have to. I was just laying there, and I felt waves of love. And I knew the Lord was with me, whatever was going on. I didn't see any images, not this time. I didn't see any images or anything. I just felt like, oh, I want to stay here forever and ever. It was just that awesome and that peaceful. And when you're in the presence of the Lord, and you'll feel it one day, right, guy, and you'll know exactly what I'm describing. It's just, oh my God, it's awesome. It's awesome. Everybody, if you're doubting, if you're on the edge, get with the Lord, man. So that happened. I was in and out of consciousness for 3 months. I was in the hospital. I was in and out, and they were telling my wife, he's not going to make it, And they were telling my family, get some grief counseling, especially for the kids. And they were just getting mad at these nurses, and then finally told them to, stop, F off and stop bugging me with this. He's coming home. And sure enough, I came home. All right. And the doctors were just amazed. They couldn't believe it. That nurse that I told you about that saved me, those 2 nurses were student nurses that they put in charge of overnight. Student nurses. They could not believe they did that. So I don't blame those 2 nurses. They had no business being put in that position, right? It was incredible. But you can't sue in Canada. You can't. It's not like the States. You really almost have to kill someone on purpose. I wasn't thinking about that. So I finally make it home. And it took 2 years to completely recover. I was in bad shape. And then I came home, and the next really bad experience happened. This is like one of the worst. So I'm in this very room that I'm in right now. My wife's sleeping there. I'm right here, and our headboard's right there against the wall. And I'm sleeping, and I feel something touch my head. And I'm thinking, well, she must want something. I open my eyes, and to my shock and amazement, I'm looking up at 2 men. They're leaning over what looked like a little metallic rail. They're leaning over. They're through my wall. They're through my wall above my headboard, looking down at me like this. 2 of them. They had black hair, kind of like my hair right now, about that short, maybe a little about that short, but black. Looked like they were wearing black leather jackets, right? They were wearing black, all black. And they had this tool, and it had the consistency of like a converter, this kind of black plastic. It looked just like that. Exactly like that. Only at the end, they're holding it on my head. They lifted it up a little, and I saw the tip of it. It was about that round, and all around the perimeter was little blue dots, just like your IR lights. That's what it looked like.
Okay.
Little blue dots in eccentric circles, and then in the middle was a little bit bigger blue dot, and that's what they were holding on my head. I think they were scanning for a chip. I really do. And in my mind, I thought I was told somehow that there wasn't one there, and they were confused because I think they may have put one into me at some time, and now it's gone. They're confused, right? They're confused. Now I'm paralyzed. I can't move, and so I'm looking up at them, and I can see behind them into the wall, and there's a set of stairs, metallic stairs. That metal that has like the embossed diamonds on it.
Okay,
So
yeah.
The
The diamond.
Crypt,
I
yeah.
forget what that is.
Yeah, I
But
forget what it's called. But you know what I'm talking about. They looked like that on the stairs going up. And there's maybe 5 to 8 or 9 stairs going up. Right behind them, there was a red tint in the back light. And the red tint was shining on I have popcorn ceiling, which I hate. I wish I never did it. I'm going to scrape it off. And it was picking up this red tint. I could see it in my room, but it was black, but just red tint. And back behind them, like if I'm these guys back behind them, there's the stairs going up, and there's two, like the stairway it had walls, metal walls. They look metal. They look like nickel actually, but a little gray or maybe not shiny, going up. And then behind them was like a curved, it was like a curved wall. So they were inside something circular, in other words, right? A crack.
okay, so Jack, do you believe that you were actually in your room, or were you abducted and they were
Don't know.
putting a screen memory over top of you to believe that you were in your room?
I don't know. I tend to think I was in my room and they were somehow projecting through, because I could see the detail of the stairs behind them and I saw the wall and the lights. Why would they bother doing that? And when they could just bring me in and I could, they could show me whatever. I had the feeling they were projecting through the wall. They were there. They were there. And I was awake. So I started struggling to move because they still had this thing on my head. They were still doing something, right? And I started struggling, and all my strength, I managed to get this arm up, this one arm, and I grabbed his arm. I actually grabbed his arm like this. And it didn't take much pressure because I didn't have any strength. I pushed and his arm came up. I don't think it was a matter of the strength. It was the intention. It was the intention. I wanted him to get off of me, and they had no choice but to let me push them away because, I mean, I had no strength in my arm at all, right? So I pushed his arm up and away like that, and then they backed up inside. The wall came back, and they were gone. And my wife was still sleeping. I couldn't wake her up. I'm trying to wake her up. I'm still having a hard time moving, wide awake. I'm still seeing that red tinge on my ceiling. That stayed for like 45 minutes to an hour, that light. And I was able to sit up, and then finally I got my wife, woke up, and how am I going to tell her what just happened? So I didn't tell her till later. Go back to sleep. But that 100% happened. That 100% happened. And then a couple of months after that, I was in the same room. My bed was this way, though. My bed was, because I didn't want it against that wall no more. I moved it away. And I blessed that wall and everything. And I put my headboard against that wall there. And closer to that wall, like so that I could get out of bed that way. And the windows here. This stuff wasn't here at the time. I have my dresser at the foot of my bed, and I had a TV on top of it. So this window was just right there, nothing blocking it. And my wife and my son are going to grab some groceries, and it was about 8:30 in the morning, 9 in the morning. My door is open, and they're saying goodbye. And I go, okay, I'll see you in a bit, because I'm kind of ill. And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I'm trying to roll over, and I can't move. What's going on? I open my eyes, standing right here, and right here were two people. I'm wide awake. I just can't move, and they look like they just stepped off of the Mayflower. Right? They look like from that era, like pilgrims, right? The guy was wearing one of those black not stovetop, but those pointy kind of hats.
The pilgrim type of hat, yeah.
Yeah, and it had a buckle on it, and it didn't come to a tip. It was flat on top, but it was pretty narrow. And he was a heavier guy, and he was maybe 5'3", not tall, and he had a white shirt on, and it seemed to have like a sort of a cut design in the collar. And then he had a vest and then a jacket. And I'm trying to remember if the sleeves had like a design too. I can't remember his did, but the woman's did. So he was just a sort of rotund guy. They just standing. They never looked at me. They were looking over here on the floor, behind my TV, behind my dresser on the floor, which was just sickening, evil presence there that I felt immediately. As soon as I saw them, I immediately knew there was something on that floor. Even before I realized they were concentrated on that the whole time. They never looked at me one time. So there was something evil on the floor. It wasn't standing up because they were looking down on the floor. They weren't looking like level. They were looking down. And I could absolutely feel this was a demonic entity with power, with authority, because there's a hierarchy in the demonic world, just like a military. And this guy had power. So beside this guy was a woman that looked like a witch. She was young. She was beautiful. She had long, sort of wavy, long black hair. She was wearing a white vest also, or a shirt also, blouse, and a black dress over top. It had like a couple of things like straps, kind of like this. And then she definitely had like a trimmed blouse, and her arms were exposed from like here down and here down, and her skin was the color of charcoal. Her skin was charcoal colored, like the color of your microphone there. Maybe a little bit, maybe a shade darker.
Okay, yeah,
of the cover, yeah. And it looked like she just rolled in coal even, but it was consistent. That was her skin color. And they were both looking at this thing, and they're doing this now, and they were doing this, and then she pulls out this bottle, and it was a green glass bottle. It looked like those old Coke bottles when I was a kid. They had the smaller ones, and it was green glass, same shape too. It was like the same shape as old Coke bottles. And she stood right here, and she reached up, and she's the same height as this guy. She wasn't tall, but she reached up. I'll show you, and put it in the ceiling right there. Right there. The window's right here. So it was right there. She put it in the ceiling right there. Her arm stretched or something because it went right into the ceiling. And when she pulled her hand out, there was no more bottle. And I haven't been up there to look. It's not a walking attic. It's hard to get around up there. There's all kinds of bracing and it's if you step in the wrong spot, you're going through the ceiling. It's full of blown insulation. I want to get up there, but
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
it's really hot and it's difficult. I do want to get up there and look because that absolutely something happened there. And then she pulled her arm out, and then they were gone. I don't know what that was, but some kind of I wouldn't say ceremony, but some kind of a hex or spell or something was pulled off there. Something happened there.
Yes. And she left something behind, that is, whether it's here I know we talked about everything is now, but whether it's in this time or it's sometime in the past or something along that line, something has been left here that maybe has marked this area. That's very interesting. Jack, you got a ton of stories, and I know we have to wrap it up here. But is there anything else you would like to impart on us before we call it a night for tonight?
Very quickly, I want to tell you why I know there's dogs in heaven. So everybody who's lost a dog,
please
stop crying. I was sleeping, and suddenly I was in heaven. I was in heaven. It's not a dream. Again, it's not a dream. And I had lost my old English bulldog, Dexter. We used to call him Sexy Dexy, the ladies' man. He was a really big old English bulldog, and he was awesome. I was going to call him Elvis because he's always wiggling his butt, a little tail, right? And he was about 100 pounds. He was a big boy, but a loving dog. He used to come up and run every morning and pounce on my bed and step on my nuts every time, right? And so we lost him. Yeah. We lost him suddenly, like overnight. He went from what we thought was completely healthy. We lost him the next day. He died on the floor. I got him back. I brought him back. I felt his nose, which is how I knew something was wrong because he wasn't coming to say hi. And I'm like, what's going on? I touched his nose and it was ice cold. So immediately I'm blown in his face, right? And then he comes back and me and my son raced, crying all the damn way, man. I don't care to admit that. And it was 20 miles, and I blew for every light, every stop sign. I just got there real quick. We got him in, and they looked him over, and they put us in a private room. They came back and they said, "I'm so sorry, but he's got cancer all through his spleen and his stomach, and they said we could remove it. He might live 6 months, and it's going to be $10,000, right?" And I'm like, I'm not putting him through that. Even if I had $10,000, I'm not putting through it. And we lost him, and my son fainted, and he's a big boy. He's a bit bigger than me. He's probably like 5'11", 5'10", but he's like 230. He's a solid rock. My boys lift weights, and he fainted, and he crashed into me, and I smacked my head on the block wall. And when he landed on me, I smacked my head on the concrete floor. But it was so heartbreaking, man. Like I was choking so that I didn't lose it because I wanted to be strong for my boy. We had to say goodbye to the dog, and then they put him down. Oh my God, I was devastated, man. I was devastated. And then we lost my Betty, my other old English bulldog. That just hurt so bad. That
Of course, losing our dogs are
yeah,
extremely.
she was like the
It's
dog of my life.
extremely difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
So
see
then
her on my icon. You can
you
see her.
went to sorry. So you went to heaven in a dream, and
So I wake up. I open my eyes. I know I'm in heaven. I'm actually just outside the gates. I'm not in the heaven proper. And it's, oh my God, it's stunning. I know I can't get into detail. I'll tell you about it privately, the details. But I walked into to an adjoining room, and it was beautiful. It was bright. I was up in the clouds. This building was in the clouds. There was clouds there. And I sat down on this sort of daybed thing, and he comes walking in, and he jumps up, and he licks my face, and he goes, "Hi, how are you?" And I go, What? I go, "What's going on?" And he knocks me down. He's licking me, and I'm like, I start losing it. I go, it's not. It can't be you. It can't be. And he goes, "It's me. It's me." And I'm just absolutely losing it. I'm like, this is how I know I wasn't in heaven proper. I was crying. No crying in heaven. I was right outside the gates in a building, right? And he goes, "It's me, Dad. Touch me, feel me." And I'm running my hands through his back, and it was absolutely him. He was there. He was talking to me, but his lips weren't moving. And we kind of did that. It can't be. It is. It ain't. And I'm bawling like a. And so, I mean, that's as quick as I'll make it. I'll tell you the details after if you want to hear them, because there's more details. But mostly just looking at the beauty of where I was. And, but absolutely,
so
Jesus did
all
that
dogs
to
go to
comfort
heaven.
me.
Then
They go to heaven. They're there. The dogs, cats, fish, birds, whatever you've had and lost, they're there, 100%, and they're having the greatest time, and they can't wait for you to get there. He was so happy to see me, and so happy the whole time. There's no sadness in that dog at all. And all the other dogs and cats and everything else were there. So they're there. They're there.
That is a beautiful way to end this off, Jack. Thank you so much.
That was great.
I really appreciated the time that you and all the experiences that you imparted on us. So I want to thank you so much for that.
Absolutely, Ryan. And thank you so much for letting me share this, because I want other people to have hope. Right?
Exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that it does instill hope that, no matter how far we maybe go down the wrong path, Jesus, God is there for us always. He's just waiting for that moment,
100%.
to present himself.
100%. You accept him, and you're in. You're in. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jack. I really appreciated this.
You're an awesome guy. I really like you a lot, Ryan. You're a cool dude. I really do.
And I really appreciate that, and Jack, I thank you so much. I think you're an amazing individual. Your journey has been amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. That was Jack, and he has had, I don't even think we even got into half of the amount of experiences that Jack has had. And, he's a great storyteller. He's very detailed orientated as well. I hope everybody enjoyed these experiences, and he showed you that, we can get into some dark things, but, there comes a time where Jesus is always waiting there for us. We're waiting for that redemption moment. And as soon as you are ready for it, they're there. So you just have to make that choice and accept it, and he'll be there. So I hope everybody has had that moment, or if you haven't, I hope you will soon. I hope I will soon as well. I think I've had, but there's always room for making that step closer, and taking that next step. So I want to thank everyone again for listening and following. And shout out to all the subscribers who support the show. It's with that I'm able to continue this. It's with the members who have bought memberships as well. You really help and support the show, and I want to say thank you so much. And as I always say, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Giants, cryptids that call,